Hi, my kindergarten friends. It's Mrs. Opferman again, and I'm at my house again today with my dog Molly. She's sleeping. I am in my brown chair today, and my brown chair is where I usually read when I'm at home. And I thought, well, maybe I'll read to you from my brown chair today. So I found one of my favorite books, and I thought it would be perfect because it's about birds, and we've been talking about birds, and you've been journaling and drawing about birds. So I thought, oh, this is the perfect book to share with my friends. So find a comfy spot in your home, and let's start reading. The book I love is called Birdhouse For Rent, and the author is Harriet Ziefert, and the illustrator is Donald Dreyfus. And the pictures in this book are painted in this book, and they're beautiful. So take a good look at them. I hope you enjoy them. Let's get started. I am a birdhouse. I was put in the ground at the beginning of July, and as you can see, I am vacant. I have no tenants. And the sign on the birdhouse says, "For rent." I see a little cat sitting right there. I wonder what that cat's doing. All summer, lots of birds flew over my roof. Some even stopped to rest. I was sure the bluebird who landed on my perch would come in, but he did not. A starling poked his beak in my doorway, but he didn't step inside either. Finally, in September, I had tenants. And guess what? They were wasps. I could hear the wasps hum as they built a paper nest on my ceiling. Just look at their nest. It's amazing. In October, when the weather got cold, the wasps left. Chipmunks moved in. Ugh, they were messy tenants. The chipmunks dragged in leaves, grass, sticks, and they dragged in more acorns than I could count. After a few weeks, I was ready for the chipmunks to leave, but they didn't. They stayed all winter. There they are, making the birdhouse their home. November was blowy. December, it rained a lot. January was icy, and heavy snow fell in February. Look at the birdhouses through the months. There's November, there's December, there's January, and that's what it looks like in February. Unfortunately, in March, a storm snapped my post. Fortunately, the chipmunks vacated. Uh-oh. I wonder what's going to happen to the birdhouse. In early April, a farmer put me on top of a new post, and a few house-hunting birds stopped by, but none of them stayed. One day, a chickadee peeked into my doorway. He hopped all over my roof and examined me from all angles. He seemed to find everything quite to his liking. He called to another bird who was perched on a nearby branch. I thought, oh, that must be Mrs. Chickadee. She came right over. She saw the place was snug and dry. The entrance was well above the floor, better for keeping out wind, rain, and enemies. She seemed pleased. So they moved in. There they are, Mr. and Mrs. Chickadee. At first, Mr. and Mrs. Chickadee spent most of their days out of the house finding insects. But after a week or two, she stayed close to home, and he did most of the food collecting. Mrs. Chickadee was building a nest. She has some things in her beak to build her nest, and he's out flying looking for food. After 3 days of hard work, Mrs. Chickadee nestled down. The next morning, I heard Mr. Chickadee calling softly. Mrs. Chickadee gave him an eager welcome, but she did not get up. When she arched her back to reach for a nice, juicy caterpillar, I saw an egg. Do you see the egg? The next day, there was another egg, and then another, and another. Finally, after 10 eggs in 10 days, Mrs. Chickadee was done. For weeks, Mrs. Chickadee had been spending nearly all of her time inside the house. Now she stayed outside all day, leaving her eggs deserted. But she did not cover them before she flew off, so an egg thief wouldn't eat them. Unfortunately, the farmer's cat was too smart for Mrs. Chickadee, and I watched him steal 3 of her eggs. Oh no. So there were 10, and the cat stole 3. How many eggs are left in their nest? Finally, the eggs started to hatch, and after 2 days, there were 7 baby birds. The babies always had their mouths wide open, begging to be fed. Altogether, I counted 600 feedings a day. Wow, that's a lot. Look at them stretched up to grab whatever Mr. and Mrs. Chickadee is bringing to them. When the babies were a few days old, guess what? The cat returned, looking for more to eat. But Mr. and Mrs. Chickadee made a lot of noise and chased him away. The babies were safe. As the babies grew, the place became quite crowded, and I could hear little cheeps all day long, as if the babies were saying, "Can we go outside? Can we go outside?" And they did. In early June, when they were big and they were plump and they could fly, they left the nest. They came in and out for a few days, and then they left the birdhouse completely. There they go. I wonder who the next tenants will be. And the sign's back on the birdhouse. It says, "For rent." There's that cat just waiting. Have you ever seen a chickadee or heard a chickadee? This is what a chickadee looks like. Have you ever seen a bird that looks like that while you've been outside or in your yard? Looks like it has a black on the top of its head with a little bit of white on the side. Its body looks gray on the top and white underneath. Keep your eyes open for a chickadee, maybe when you're walking in your neighborhood or in your yard. Hey, let's draw birdhouses in our journals today. So get your journal out or a piece of paper and draw yourself a birdhouse and maybe put Mr. and Mrs. Chickadee in it. Maybe put the nest in it with all the eggs and all the little chicks in it, and take a picture of it and send it to us. Have fun. I'll see you next time.